Hello, welcome to Out and About with Annie. Well, you can see we're not out and about. Here's my blue Christmas tree, which it is after Christmas, but I haven't taken it down yet. So today I'm just going to tell you a story. We're not out and about, and I'm going to tell you a story about something that happened in my community, and it is a true crime, and no one's reported on any of the other YouTube channels. So since I know something about the circumstances, don't know anything about the crime, but know something about the circumstances surrounding this, um, I'm going to tell this story. Now, let me back up a little bit. This takes place in Jackson Township near Canton, Ohio. Jackson Township lies between Canton, Massillon, North Canton. It's a more affluent township. Definitely a lot more affluent than Canton, Ohio. And by the way, Canton, Ohio is where the Pro Football Hall of Fame is. So it's a well-traveled area, but the community this takes place in is where the doctors, the attorneys, the upper echelon live. But also, people with regular size homes live there. There are apartments, there are condos. It's a big area, but there's definitely pockets of it that are very, very affluent. So this police station was at the time in a little teeny strip mall. I think there was 3, maybe 4 things in there. Yes, a police station and a little strip mall. Right now, it's a 91 oven-fired restaurant where it used to be the police station. The police station now has a nice home. It's the Jackson Township Safety Building, and there's a police station, fire station, everything in there. Very nice home. Around there is Belden Village Mall, indoor shopping, and several strip malls. Several strip malls. And every chain restaurant, whether fast food or a better chain restaurant in the areas around there. Half a mile, you can eat anything you want, any time of day. You can shop anywhere you want around there within a half a mile. Everything's there. So that's one of the reasons that Jackson Township is a little more affluent. It definitely has the commerce. And there's a lot of doctor's offices. There's a lot of businesses. Okay, so it has a lot of commerce. Okay, so this story takes place in the police station parking lot. Yes, you heard me right. The police station parking lot. Yeah. So it was a cold, rainy night in February. The date was February 26th, 1991. Now, being 1991, the electronic movement was still in its infancy. Not every building had cameras all the way around. Not everybody had, there were no cell phones, especially not the kind we're used to that everybody pulls them out and you know, videos everything going on around them, takes a picture of their food. That wasn't happening then. So keep that in mind. There were pay phones. There were dial-up landline phones. Okay, so keep that in mind because I'm sure this wouldn't have happened today in a police station parking lot because of all of the cameras around and everything else that goes on in a police station parking lot. So it's very much a sign of the times. Keep that in mind. All right, my sources today were the Canton Repository and the local radio station, WHBC, and the community. Keep that in mind. There were all kinds of things going around the community on this. At the time, I lived in the area and worked in the area. So that's why I wanted to cover this. Even if, and I tried to stay away from gossip and people and everything, but even if you didn't want to hear it, you heard about this. So keep that in mind. Everybody in the community knew something, knew somebody. So I don't know how to say that. Okay, everybody knew something. All right. I also want to make sure you know that I am not going to victim blame, not police blame, not relative blame. I am also not going to tell parts of the story that all the repositories told or other places told, because I think that looks not good on everybody involved, and some of it's not facts. Now I'll get into a little bit of not facts, but I just don't want to tell you things that I know aren't true and I know may hurt somebody. So we're not going to tell that. Now, with this, I also want to say that this part of the community, it's a lot, well, the population grew as it has everywhere. So it wasn't desolate out there. It's on a main thoroughfare. But right now, if you go where that is, there's a car passing every few seconds. Then it might have been 5 minutes at nighttime, or it might have been a little less, a little more. So keep that in mind. This is going away from where this police station was going away from where the shopping and the restaurants were. Plus, now going away from it, there's more shopping and more restaurants and more of everything. So it's kind of in the heart of it all, but it wasn't then. Okay. So a woman, her name's Jill Holtzbach, a woman drives in her 1973 Mercury Comet. You remember Comets? They were funny cars. Into the Jackson Township Police parking lot. Okay? She is frantic and believing when she pulls into this parking lot that she's going to be able to get help. All right? And you would assume that pulling into a police parking lot. A man in a separate car has followed her into this parking lot, and he is yelling at her to get out of the car. And she is frantically honking her horn. So this is not quiet. She's honking her horn. And he's yelling, get out of the car in the police parking lot. Now, Jill is a 29-year-old wife and mother. And I'm not going to disparage. I do have to tell other parts of the story, but keep that in mind that I'm not going to do that. So she pulls into this parking lot. She has her car locked. She has her windows rolled up. She's alone in this car, honking, and this guy is still yelling, get out of the car. Get out of the car. Now, inside the police station, the front desk clerk hears the commotion. She heard the commotion. All right, but the other police personnel did not hear the commotion. All right, so she hears it going on at the time, and this is all happening very fast. This man yells again. He points a .380 caliber at the car, shoots into her driver's side window, and hits Jill in the chin and neck. And then he speeds away. He just gets in his car and takes off. Okay? And she's left behind. So those are the facts. Those are the facts. I am going to go with how the police went from there, but those are the facts. Okay? Now, let me just say that everybody in this has their own version of this, believe it or not, which I find interesting since it was in a police parking lot. Okay, so we're going to go on. So she was married and she lived in Massillon with her husband and her daughter. And a friend told investigators that a few months ago, Jill told her friend that she was unhappy in her marriage. Everybody has those times in a marriage, you know. And Jill carried a suitcase containing black nylons, a teddy, panties, and condoms, with 2 missing out of the box, in her trunk. Okay. Now, supposedly her husband knew those were in there, and he said that she put him out there because her daughter had gotten into them before and they were theirs to use. Okay, so, okay, all right. All right, that night, before she pulled into the parking lot of the police station, she had visited a former boyfriend a few hours before. She was supposed to be having a girls' night out that her husband knew about, but she visited a boyfriend, and this is supposedly fact because he confirmed it. And the boyfriend said they had sex about 2 hours before she pulled into the parking lot. So he was acknowledging that she came to see him. Okay, so we have the husband, we have a boyfriend. Now, the boyfriend, supposedly they'd known each other since high school and they'd been on and off, and okay. According to other people, she was going to the boyfriend to see him as a boyfriend, and other people said she was going to break it off. All conjecture at this point. Okay. All right. Going on. Okay, so there was a policeman on the scene. Okay, well, he wasn't on the scene. The other policeman did not hear anything. The front desk clerk, I guess a civilian, not really a police personnel, went back and they said they didn't hear anything. So she told one of the officers on patrol, I radioed him up, told one of the officers on patrol that there was a commotion at the police station. All right. So he wasn't that far away, less than 5 minutes away. So he pulled into the police parking lot. He doesn't see, because they assumed when she heard voices, get out of the car, blah, blah, yelling, that it was a domestic in the police department's parking lot. And I guess that's not that unusual that they come to the parking lot of the police department and start yelling at each other. That's the way they made it sound. So she radioed somebody, and he came out about 5 minutes later, and he came in. She said it was out in the parking lot. He went back out in the parking lot, saw the Mercury Comet, walked around it, saw the glass everywhere, saw the lady slumped over in the front seat. And then he yelled for everybody else to come out there, and they then went about their techniques at the time. Now, keep in mind that the way they did things in 1991 are not the same as today. So, however, the only forensic evidence that was listed in any of my research were 2 casings. Both casings were inside the car. One of the projectiles went out the back trunk window area. If you know what a comet is, you'll know how that looks. And supposedly everything I could find, that was the only evidence There were not fingerprints. There was not biologicals. That was the only thing there, supposedly. Again, not the same as today. All right. So that's, and I guess that's pretty much part of what I'm going to say facts. Okay. About midnight, the police went to the home of her husband, Jimmy, her and her husband and daughter, Jimmy, in Massillon. They they knocked on the door and they drew weapons. They were sure that, and again, it's usually the husband or boyfriend, and they didn't know what they were walking into, so we're not going to assign blame there, okay? But they took him to the police station and took him in an interview room and started questioning him. It was a 3.5-hour interview that followed, and mainly Jimmy was very upset during the time and paced, and it just went on and on. He was really stressed out, which is not that unusual, but is. Usually they sit down, but he was really stressed out. They finally told him, they didn't tell him when they picked him up, but they finally told him that his wife had been shot. He started screaming wildly. They did a residue firearms test on his hands to see if he recently fired a weapon. They also asked about his vehicle because it wasn't there at the house. So they wanted to know if he had a chance to follow her in a vehicle. Well, his vehicle was at a local high school being worked on. High schools have the divisions for automotive construction, those classes. And an officer went over there, and there it was, and it was cold. So his car had an alibi. That's what I want to say. His car had an alibi. So they know he didn't drive, but that doesn't get him off the hook. He didn't drive his car. That doesn't get him off the hook. He said on that day that him and his wife delivered newspapers. That was one of their primary source of income at that time. And when newspapers were more prevalent, a lot of people delivered newspapers. And if you did a lot of them, I guess you could make not a real good living, but you could make some kind of living at it, I wouldn't say. They had dinner, and then she was going out for girls' night. And he told the detectives that he watched a couple basketball games at home, talked to a friend on the phone about youth softball league that they were going to be coaching, and he was home with his daughter. His daughter, even though she had been put to bed, confirms he was there the whole time. I believe that, but kids, so the police didn't necessarily believe it. Okay. So that was their investigation on that part. Later on, they found the boyfriend, and let's see, they said they cleared him, but he was waiting to be sentenced. Well, he was just sentenced. He was waiting to be put in prison for domestic abuse on an ex-wife. So that doesn't sound great. And Jimmy himself, that's her husband, he has a couple quotes, and I'm going to quote him. He says, "I'm not the greatest person." Okay, and he's referring to, he had a couple arrests for thefts, bad checks, and receiving stolen property. But he went on to say, and I'm quoting again, "But I don't have no murder on my rap sheet." Now, they found on Jimmy's rap sheet 2 years prior a domestic violence arrest as well. Now, that they never go into. I'm assuming it was towards Jill, since they have a daughter and stuff together. They don't go into any detail about that. And I could find no detail about that. And back then, I could find no detail about that. So we got the two men in her life, both have domestic abuse arrests. One was just an arrest, one's waiting to be sent to prison for it. So that's not good. Now, what happened then? Well, this goes unsolved. Unsolved. Okay, so they had to do an investigation to see if, and I left all the officers' names out like this, like the one that found the car and all that, because some of the officers had a hard time with this happening there. One of them went on to be police chief, but this was all a problem with them. So I kind of left out some of the detail because from the area, I don't want to talk about anybody. So if somebody else picks this up, I'll give you the information, but I'm not gonna do it. So they had questions about what happened. They got help. They tried to get help. They, of course, talked with the prosecutor. They took the file to the FBI in Quantico, Virginia. They took it to the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigations. They have a cold case. Nothing. So that's not cool. Nobody went anywhere with this. They had to do an investigation on themselves. Okay, because it happened in their parking lot. It happened, they heard it. They came right after. So they had to do an investigation on themselves. And all they found in the investigations was a series of miscommunications. That the lady that heard it, the guys in the back didn't hear it, the patrolman came in, went in first. Nobody was actually able to help Jill out. Nobody. She was already gone by the time they found her. And that's very sad. Very sad. So this happened in 1991. And it has not gone any further. There have been no arrests, no grand jury, nothing like that. Now, I'm not going to quote which policeman said this, but they are 80% sure that they know who it is, maybe even 90% sure, but they have no evidence. The prosecutor will not let them make an arrest, or wouldn't. I don't think they've handled it in any recent times. Would not let them make an arrest because there's no evidence. Again, I said the only evidence at the scene was the two casings. Both men have alibis. They both have family members saying where they were. One's a daughter. The boyfriend is a mom. So that's that. Now, there were other things said during this time that I'm not going to say, but there was a third possible man involved, and I believe that one was all gossip. But it would make sense with some other things that are going on in this case that I've told you, like the stuff in the trunk that I told you about that she carried in the trunk. But that's gossip. So the two men in her life, it doesn't have to be, but this isn't a stranger, just an odd thing. Hey, I'll follow her, No, this is somebody that knew her, wanted her to get out of the car, knew where she was at, and did it anyway. This is someone who was emotionally invested in the situation. Husband, boyfriend, somebody else, it could be. Now we know it was a man because they heard, or the front desk person at the police station heard a man. Okay, so we know it was a man. There was, and this was a rumor also, that the car leaving the parking lot, and I don't know who saw this, who said this. I think one of the policemen saw it on Fulton Road and thought it might have came from the police department, but that's not fact either. They thought it was a Grand Prix. And in 91, Grand Prix were pretty big, so it might have been. The car was recognizable if it was a Grand Prix. Now, is that true? Is that false? The husband had a Grand Prix, but his was at one of the area high schools in the automotive department getting fixed. So, he didn't have it. So you have to think about that. Anybody have any ideas? The police have a definite idea. The police have made their mind up. They can't do anything about it. As far as I know, in the last 10 years, nobody's touched. No, there has not been any updates in the paper or anything like that. Now, I can't say that it's a cold case. They might look at it once a month, once a week. I don't know. So that is the story of the murder in a police station that was found right away and heard right away. So if you like this content better than my other content, let me know. If you like what I do out and about better, let me know. I think I'm going to mix it up, but I'd like to hear from you. So let me know. And I hope you have a good 2024. Bye.